We're in it to have a good time, to sort of make money, to have lots of laughs and everything else, right? And I mean, Jimmy did all those things. That girl put a spell on me.
You know, I think about Jimi Hendrix, you know, because here he is, this young black musician leading this whole new generation of music. Where did he come from?
Most of what the people had been used to was kind of dressed up, watered down soul music. And for someone like Jimmy to come along was so powerful. I think it was simply that he was just so powerful and so direct that it was, you know, it was what everyone had been waiting for.
Jimi Hendrix's career was going nowhere until he was discovered in a Greenwich Village bar in September 1966 by Chas Chandler, the bass player with the Animals.
I thought immediately he was the best guitarist I'd ever seen. He was playing the little pickup band that was one of these coffee bar things that they have in Greenwich Village where you get like sort of $15 to do a spot. And the first song Jimmy played that afternoon on stage was Hey Joe. And he had it all. You just sat there and thought to yourself, well, this is ridiculous. Why hasn't somebody signed this guy up? How come he's loose, you know?
Hendrix was very keen to meet British guitarists like Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton, so it was easy for Chandler to persuade him to come to London, the music and fashion capital of the swinging 60s.
Always up, you never let me down. The amazing thing, you turn me on naturally. And I kiss you when I please.
A couple of days after we got to England, I bumped into Jack Bruce and Eric in a club called the Cromwellian, where we used to all, it was one of our watering holes in them days. And, I told them about Jimmy, and they said, well, bring him down to the Regent Polytechnic on Saturday. That was when they had Cream by that time. It was the very early days of Cream. They said, bring him down and have him jam with us.
We were just getting ready to go on, and Chas showed up, Chas Chandler, with this young black guy who was very striking in every way. I mean, his appearance and his manner, which was, to say the least, very, very shy. He was extremely shy, but at the same time, quite kind of aware of himself, you know. And Jimmy got up, and he brought his own guitar, and he was left-handed for a start, and he played a normal Strat, you know, so the whole thing was upside down, so that was a little astonishing. And he went straight into Killing Floor, the Howling Wolf song. He played just about every style you could think of, you know, and not in a flashy way. I mean, I think he did a few of his tricks, like playing it with his teeth and behind his back and things like that, but it wasn't in an upstaging sense at all. And that was it, you know. I think we did maybe just that song, and he walked off, and my life was never the same again, really.
Chandler now put together the Jimi Hendrix Experience, with Mitch Mitchell on drums and Noel Redding on bass.
Noel had the same haircut as Jimmy, so I suggested he go down and try playing bass with Jimmy.
So I sat in with this gentleman guy and a drummer and a keyboard player, and they asked me to come back the next day. I said, if you give me 10 bob, I will. So they gave me 10 bob.
We tried a series of drummers, and we literally flipped the coin. Fortunately for us, it turned up Mitch, and I think we're very lucky there, because Mitch was the perfect man for the job. Noel played like the anchor in the band. He kept it just steady. Jimmy and Mitch were then just opened up and just played off the seat of their pants and always could come back to where Noel was, just keeping the whole thing together. It was just a perfect fusion. It was very exciting.
Hey, Joe. I said, before you go with that, you're gonna go down. Hey, Joe. I said, before you go with that, you're gonna go down. I'm going way down south, way down south. You know, somehow later I gotta get out of here as fast as I can. I put down a shot my lady. I forgot the words. But I get out of here as fast as I can.
Well, the first time I met Hendrix was at a music club called Bag of Nails, which was a 60s nightclub full of 60s beautiful people and rock and roll people. I was there with my partner, Kit Lambert. And there was an ordinary English rock and roll band playing on the stage, which I wasn't taking much notice of. Then suddenly I heard this amazing guitar playing. And I looked up and there was this incredible looking black guy playing. My first impression was that he looked very much like a black Bob Dylan. And the way that he played the guitar was just sensuous, I think I should call it.
Kit practically knocked tables over to get across to talk to me and said, I've just got to sign this guy. And we sat that night and made out the deal. And he agreed to pay £1,000 advance for the Jimi Hendrix experience. And that was done, sort of worked out on a beer mat.
We were doing like small clubs and the buzz got about, and suddenly all these little clubs we were doing, we were getting £15 or something. I never saw it anyway. And suddenly it was packed. And there was like all these like celebrities coming along, which sort of freaked me out a bit because I was very young. Like you sit in the dressing room and John Lennon walks in.
The Beatles and the Rolling Stones were the aristocracy of music at the time. And they very early on became big fans of Jimi.
Is that the stars in the sky?
I mean, I remember Jagger turning around in an interview one day and saying, why the hell are you interviewing me? You should be interviewing Jimi Hendrix. Things like that made it happen so quickly.
It was a very skillful PR campaign, I think, to begin with. Chaz worked very hard on it. And he pushed the image and the photographs, and it was necessary to get attention to Hendrix, I think. It was a kind of like savage image when you looked at it in photographs. When you actually met Jimi, of course, it was a slightly different kettle of rock altogether because he was this quiet, whispering, gentle character off stage.
Jimi was a wonderfully warm guy. He was very soft-spoken. He was very hip. He was very slyly hip. Jimi always had a sort of sly smile. He would see things, and you would realize he was seeing something you hadn't seen. But when you looked at him, you would recognize it. And there was just this sly smile that he had, and you would laugh with him. Beautifully warm guy. That's how I remember him. I mean, and also I thought he was some sort of genius as well.
I was talking to some little kids, you know, the people that they call teeny boppers, you know. I was talking to them, and I found out, you know, I said, what was your favorite groups? What's some of your favorite groups? Do you know anything about music, you know? They said, yeah, we like the Cream, we like y'all's group. I said, oh, excuse me. Oh, yeah, great, thank you very much. Beautiful. If I said, wow, you know, their minds are different. So they don't want to hear about this manufactured tinfoil music, you know.
When he first came over to England, through his meetings with a few people, it did seem like a lot of material suddenly came out in a very short space of time.
We're recording the B-side of Purple Haze, and there was 20 minutes left in the studio, and Jimi had written Wind Cries Mary the night before at home.
Well, after all the jacks are in the boxes, and the clowns have all gone to bed, you can hear happiness staggering on down the street. Footprints dressed in red. The wind whispers, hear it.
go in and it'd be like, I'd say, what key is it in? And Mitchell would say, what tempo is it? And we'd record it.
Mitch and Noel had never heard the song before. It was recorded, including 5 guitar overdubs in the 20 minutes. And that was all part of the session for Purple Haze. And we had the 3rd single there and then. So as soon as Purple Haze started fading in the chart, we brought Wind Cries Mary out.
A broom is drearily sweeping of the broken pieces of yesterday's life. Somewhere a queen is weeping. Somewhere a king has no wife. When cry,
Hey Joe, Purple Haze, and The Wind Cries Mary all made the British top 10. In the spring of 1967, the Experience embarked on their first major tour in the unlikely company of Cat Stevens, the Walker Brothers, and Engelbert Humperdinck. By the time the first album came out that May, the Jimi Hendrix Experience had established themselves throughout Europe.
Our Experience came out within a couple of months of Sgt. Pepper, and Sgt. Pepper became like a watershed album. And so there we were with Our Experience coming out, right on the coattails of a very innovative album by the Beatles, which really did make a significant change. The albums became taken as a much more serious piece of work in them days at that time.
Hey, it was 20 years ago today. Sgt. Pepper told the band to play. They were going in and out of style, but the guarantee to bring a smile. The man is built for you. What now is it? Sgt. Pepper, Lonely Hearts Club Band.
You know, like, you got to remember how huge the Beatles were in them days. They were just a colossus. And when the Mamas and Papas and John Phillips and them come up with the Monterey thing, they asked Paul to be part of the board that would set up in front and guarantee the Monterey Festival. And Paul just basically said, I'll join the board of the Monterey if the Jimi Hendrix Experience are on the show. That was his condition on joining it. And Brian Jones was a good pal of the Jimmys and mine. Used to be at our house all the time. And it was Brian that answered the phone from California with John Phillips came on the phone asking us to go to Monterey. And because Brian had answered the phone, we turned around and said, yeah, Brian will come out and do the announcing for Jimmy. So Brian went out with us and announced Jimmy on stage.
Prettiest performer, the most exciting guitarist I've ever heard. The Jimi Hendrix Experience.
It was freaky, you know. Like the first gig in America doing this huge festival. All these people sort of leaping about, taking various things, and hair everywhere, and women, of course.
We couldn't make it here, so we go to England. And America doesn't like us because, you know, our feet's too big. And we got fat mattresses, and we wear golden underwear. Ain't no scene like that, brother. You know, it's just, gee, man, just, you know, I was laying around and went to England and picked up these 2 cats. And now here we are, man. It was so, you know, groovy to come back here this way, you know, and really get a chance to really play, you know.
You know, it's amazing the guy had to come to England to make it back there. But, so, of course, you know, going back to America was a big deal for him. was important for him to make it under his own name and steam. You know, I mean, yeah, the guy, there's enough ego involved that the guy wanted to get in there and hit hard.
Sing it with me. Wow, thing. You make my heart sing. You make forever groove. Wow, thing. Wow, thing, I think you move. But I wanna know for sure. Come in, you move. Look out. I can't express myself in any, conversation. I can't explain myself like this or that sometimes because, this doesn't come out like that. So, when we're on stage, it's all in the world. That's your whole life.
Jimi Hendrix was born in Seattle in 1942 and grew up in a predominantly white community. His parents divorced in 1950. Jimi spent much of his childhood with his grandmother, a full-blooded Cherokee. Hendrix was a shy and introverted boy. When he was 12, his father bought him his first electric guitar. Learning from the rock and roll hits on the radio, he taught himself to play. In 1961, he joined the paratroopers. But 14 months later, he was discharged after injuring himself during a parachute jump. For the next 3 years, Hendrix played with any band that would have him, working a network of black clubs and theaters known as the Chitlin Circuit.
You have to remember that this lad had been on stage with a lot of very influential blues players in America. He'd worked with the Isley Brothers, he'd worked with Ike and Tina Turner, he'd worked with Little Richard, doing the Chitlin Circuit in America. That's got to rub off on you. I mean, if you don't entertain on them shows, they throw things at you. So you've got to learn to entertain damn quick. And it all just came to fruition. Two little lads from England.
As is the way with musicians, we just sort of dug up all our heroes and compared them. And we actually thought the same. And he liked Robert Johnson, he liked Freddie and B.B. King, and he liked Buddy Guy. He liked all the same people. And he just seemed to be conversant in all this. I mean, it was such a thrill for me because it was all secondhand. In reality, for me, it was something that I learned from records. This guy had been amongst them and was one of them.
I don't know if he idolized me as a musician, but he seemed to respect what I did. And so if he did something bluesy,
that's the thing that he would play for, man. He'd play it so his attack to a guitar, man, was, something else. Yeah, I think of one of the great American pitchers or ball players or one of the great fighters of the world, you know. That's the way he would attack any note on his guitar.
I got to see Jimmy for the first time in '69 in Seattle, because I lived in Seattle at the time. And it's just the wildest music I ever heard. I mean, it's just really, after that first assembly, I went and bought Are You Experienced? And living in Virginia, I mean, we were playing soul music and things like that, and it was just a completely different way of an approach to a guitar. And I was really thrilled by it.
I think really what it was he was making these extraordinary futuristic guitar sounds, but also you could hear almost the whole history of the blues in them or something. There was some connection between the blues history and the guitar and the way that Jimmy was taking it into the future.
But Jimmy played blues and played it well. And he played good blues. He just did it Jimi Hendrix way, which was Jimi Hendrix.
One-way player. I played strict Chicago blues. You know, I'd never tried to cross it with anything. And he had this melting pot going on that he'd drawn from different places that I did try and pick up on.
Well, I was pretty young and impressionable at that time, and I would sit and listen to his records as much as I could. And, you know, I'd sit and learn all the licks and everything in my room. My mother would ask what the hell was going on downstairs, you know. I had this big room. I had my stereo cranked up loud. And I swear, man, I had a lot of that stuff down note for note. I was really into Jimmy's music a whole lot. And for me, it just opened up. It just opened up all kinds of avenues and different ways of going about playing guitar.
You know, he used to get up in the morning to go and fry himself a breakfast, and he'd be frying bacon and eggs with a guitar on. He took the guitar around. That lad never had a guitar off less than 8 hours every day, plus the gig at night. He'd take the guitar to Lou with him because he liked the sound of the echo in there, and he'd sit in there sometimes for hours just playing the Fender guitar, not plugged in, because he liked the sound of coming off the tiles and the loo. He had a guitar on all the time, all the time. He was the best guitarist in the world because he wanted to be the best, and he was prepared to work at it.
After their success at Monterey, the Experience were booked at the Fillmore in San Francisco, the top underground club on the West Coast.
Jefferson Airplane were top of the bill. Jimmy was second, and Big Brother and the Holding Company were the opening act. We'd done 2 nights there, and Jefferson Airplane cried off because Jimmy just crucified them, murdered them on stage. And they pulled out of the last show, and we got back to the hotel after the second show, after being told that we'd be topping the bill on the last night. And we were really ecstatic. It'd been a fantastic night. And we got a phone call from Mike Jeffrey in New York to tell us he pulled off this fantastic deal, that he got them on the Monkees tour. And Jimmy and I just sat there stunned. We couldn't believe he'd done this. I mean, the Monkees.
So I thought it was great because the Monkees were huge in America at that point. They had their own aeroplane with Monkees written on the side. So I thought that was lovely. And we got a little things saying monkeys, touring, partying, all that rubbish. But we didn't actually go down that well because it was a whole different crowd altogether.
And I just said, well, I'm getting them off this tour. Now, Dick Clark was promoting that tour, and he agreed with me that it was a terrible mismatch. And the two of us sat there and cooked up this tale about the Daughters of the American Revolution that made complaints about it. Now, Daughters of the American Revolution were in them days when anybody's Aunt Sally. I mean, they thought Barry Goldwater was a pinko, you know? And it was a good thing to hang it on. So we put out this story, and the next thing you knew, it was like sort of front page news everywhere.
I don't think there was any doubt that there was a concerted effort on the part of the publicity machine around Jimmy at the time to cause a little bit of moral indignation within the context of the media and some of the pillars of the establishment at the time. Because, I mean, that's one of the things that immediately gets the kids on your side. I mean, it worked with the Stones, it worked with the Sex Pistols, it worked with Jimi Hendrix.
I want to hear and see everything. I want to hear and see everything.
From mid-1967, for the next 2 years, the Jimi Hendrix Experience toured non-stop, establishing themselves as one of the most successful live acts of all time.
Oh, shucks.
As an artist is generating publicity, his album's going up the chart. Your first section of the tour might be in 2,000 or 3,000 seater auditoriums. The next section may be in 5,000 seaters. By the time we finish that 68 thing, we're doing big arenas and state fairs, and he was topping the bill, and we were picking up like $100,000 a night by the end of that tour.
This guy, Mike Jeffries, who managed us all, was a remarkable guy. And he and Jimmy had figured out, I think, that to tour a band around the United States using air transport was really not that much different from touring it around London using road transport. And so we zigzagged to and fro, up and down, north, south, east, west, you know, across America. And you'd be in swimming in Arizona in the morning, and in the afternoon you'd get out in a blizzard in Canada.
Is this true? Please let me talk to you. I just want to know about the rooms behind your minds. Do I see a vacuum there, or am I growing blind? Or is it just a remains of vibrations, echoes long ago? Things like love the world and let your fancy flow. Is this true?
If you're touring in that manner, there's basically no time to relax. It's like you get on a plane, you go to the place, you go and do a press reception. You go to the hotel, you have a bath, you go and do a gig, you go to a club, you find a young lady or she finds you, you go back home, and then whatever else follows, and then you get up at 8 o'clock, you get on a plane, go to the next place, go to a club, and you do that for about 3 months. You do tend to get very tired. I've never seen so many women in my life. I was only 20 years old. Like, when we started, there was women everywhere, and that escalated, especially when we went to America later on. That got a bit silly then, with the ladies.
Woo! What's the lady? Box of lady.